What's going on, guys? Large Bass Fisherman here. Today I'm going to be walking you through a 300-hour kit for the maintenance on your Mercury 60 horsepower motor. Let's see what's in this box. I ordered this from PartsVu. It's going to come with a lot of different stuff. You've got your oil. I'm using 25W40 because I live in the South. You got your gear lube. You've got another box. In the secondary box, you've got anodes, spark plugs, oil filter, 2 more anodes and a water impeller, various gaskets, and a fuel filter. Now I'm going to start out with my lower unit, changing that gear lube out. All it is on these Mercury 60s is that bottom screw and this top screw. You'll just remove those, let it drain, and then you're gonna fill it back up. I'm gonna start by removing this top one. I'm gonna remove the bottom. You start trimming your motor down so that you can get that last bit of gear lube out of there. While that's draining, we're gonna go ahead and prep for the oil. So we're gonna take and we're gonna loosen our oil fill cap. Set that off to the side. You want that airflow through there when you're draining the oil. Filter's right here. And then we've got an 11/16 socket right there that's gonna drain that oil. Now I've already broken this loose for the sake of video, so I'm gonna just go ahead and take this out. And you gotta be careful because this is gonna start shooting out of here and pouring out. So have your drain pan ready. All right, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna take our gear lube, and you've got to have one of these pumps. I bought it with a kit last year. And this is my old gear lube that I used last year. I still haven't used all of it, so I'm gonna use the rest of it on this change. I'm gonna keep that new bottle. But basically you take this, you screw this little end onto the bottom down here, and then you're gonna pump it until it starts coming out the top, and that's when you know you're full. This just threads in right here. Thread that all the way in, and you're gonna start pumping. All right, once it starts coming out the top, you'll take your prepped bolt, let the air bubbles get out of there. Now this will act as a seal, so it's not going to drain out of the bottom very much when you take the bottom off. Now that you're done with your gear lube, your oil should be done draining. Now you're going to break this oil filter free. And you'll take this, I got this in a kit as well, an oil change kit. It doesn't come with this 300-hour one, but you're gonna put this up under the oil filter. And the reason is so that you don't get oil draining down into your motor. Now there's not a lot that drips, but the stuff that does drip, you wanna catch it, so that's what that's for. Now you'll open your new oil filter. I'll take and put it on my finger. Rub it around this seal so you don't rip that seal off as you're tightening this thing down. Inspect everything, and then you can slap your new oil filter on. All right, once you've got that back in, we're gonna get ready to fill our oil. And you can see right here on the top of your motor, it'll tell you that this motor takes 3 liters or 3.2 quarts. So what you'll do here is I'll take my funnel, I'll set it in like this, and I'll start pouring my oil in. This is 3.7 liters. So I'll pour it until I feel like it's getting close, and then I'll check my oil, and then if I need to add more, I'll add more. All right, your engine oil dipstick, so that you can check your oil, is gonna be on the left side of your motor. You'll just pop this up, pull this out, check your levels. All right, once you've checked your oil and you're satisfied with it, double check everything, make sure you've got everything tight, everything sealed back up, throw your cover on, and you just completed your oil change and lower unit oil change, which you should do yearly. All right, guys, so for the next part of our install, our $300 kit, we're gonna be doing probably the easiest part, and it's our fuel filters, your inline, your standard fuel filter, and we're also gonna do a thermostat. All super easy to do. Your main fuel filter is right here. Your inline fuel filter is going to be right here on the left side of your motor under this little cover. And then your thermostat is right here where this little Mercury symbol is. So for this inline filter, you can just take this black cover here and just pull it down the fuel line right out of the way. And you can access your inline fuel filter, which is just held on by those clips. The gas is going to spill out, so be ready for that. You want to remember which way you put it in. Easiest way you can do that is by popping this one end off. I'll take this new one, go ahead and pop it in. Shove it down under. Got that in place. Take this other one out, get ready to spill some gas. This thing's full of gas, so just be aware of that. Take the other end. Pop it in, and you're done with the inline fuel filter. Just like that, you're back in. So for this fuel filter, all you gotta do is loosen this nut. That'll allow this mechanism to come out. It's got this rubber grommet on it to stop the vibration when you're running. Pop these 2 hoses off here, place them on your new one, put it back in, and you're good to go. Take the screws out. Gonna drop this mechanism right here, 2 washers, and back on here. So that's ready. You're gonna have to cut these zip ties off. All right, now you're gonna put new zip ties on this. See, those were just held on by pressure and zip ties. So that's all you've got to do. We're going to take our bubble here, fuel bubble, and we're we're gonna pump it till we get fuel in there. And it's almost full of fuel already. And we're good. Now we've got fuel back in our filter. That's it. It's that simple. We'll move on to replacing our thermostat right here. Got a lot of corrosion on this bolt. If you want, you can clean that out and then put grease back on it. There's your cover and your gasket. That looks pretty old. It's probably about time to change that bad dude. Get this new one. And then peel this old gasket off. Place our new gasket on. Just like that, you're done. You're sealed back up. Too easy. Now your anodes are super easy. It's just a bolt that goes all the way through there for those two. And this one down here has two bolts, one on each side of it. Super easy replacement. You just take those out, put the new one on, put them back in. There you go. Now all your anodes are done. All right, so for the next part of our $300 maintenance kit, we're gonna hit these spark plugs. They're located on the left side of the motor, right here, attached to your spark plug wire. And you'll see it off down in there. You've got 4 of them. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way up to the top up here. You're just gonna pop those off, these caps. Take your old spark plugs out. You're gonna take your new spark plugs, gap them. You're gonna need a 5/8 spark plug socket, a wobble, an extension. That's all you're gonna need. And a gapping tool, of course, so that you can gap your new spark plugs properly. You can find that gap right here on the back of your motor. So if you see mine is 0.040 or 1 millimeter. You're gonna throw your new spark plug right back in. That's my new one that I just gapped. You don't have to get it super tight. You just want to get it enough to crush that washer that comes on that new spark plug. And you're gonna pop your cover back on, and you're good to go. So, like I said earlier, you've got to gap these spark plugs before they're ready for use. So you're gonna get your gap tool. You're gonna find that 0.40 right there. And then you're just gonna take and you're gonna create that gap in between there with that by sliding it in on the thin part here. And then you're just going to pull it around till I'm right on it. Just take it out. Now you've created your proper gap that you need. Now these ones in the middle are a little harder to get out to get access to that spark plug back there. So what you can do is just take a pair of needle nose, reach in there, grab onto it, not too hard because these are rubber, and it'll pop right out. All right, once you've got your spark plugs done, you're ready to throw the cover back on and you're good. That's it for this portion of the 300-hour kit. Remember, I like to do these one at a time so I don't forget which wire goes with which spark plug. I'll just do unplug one at a time and then install one spark plug at a time so I don't mess that up. And that's all you gotta do, super easy. All right, so we saved the best for last on the 300-hour kit, the water impeller. Some of the tools that you're gonna need some marine grease, maybe a razor blade and some brushes to help clean off some of that old grease. Paint marker, automotive paint marker, some 5/8 wrenches, and then one of these will make your life a lot easier too. Okay, so we're gonna start by removing our prop first. Just this nut here. And then we're gonna get that removed. And then we've got to remove all these bolts that hold the lower unit in. There's 5, 2 on each side and 1 under the bottom. All right, now that we've got the prop removed, I'm gonna go ahead and just clean all this old grease off of here. Get that cleaned up before we take this lower unit off. That way it's ready to be put back on as soon as we're done. All right, so I've broken all 5 of them loose for the sake of time in the video. First one I'm gonna remove is this back one back here. All right, so I've got all of them out except this one. That one's broken loose. I'm not gonna remove it yet because I'm gonna stand behind up under the lower unit when I take it out so that it doesn't fall. Also, I forgot, there's a stud in here and that nut goes on the back of the stud and that stud comes from here, so you're gonna have to remove that too. All right, so now we've got that nut removed off of the stud and then all 5 of the bolts, 4 of them are gone, and then this one right here is loose. So when I take that out, I'm gonna be standing up under it, and just in case it were to come loose, I don't wanna drop it. It's probably stuck on there though. Get that out, set it in my pocket, and then I'll start to wiggle that lower unit off of there and I'll set it on my stand. All right, I've got my motor in my little improvised stand here, or my lower unit, and now I'm gonna get to start working on this. So now that we're here, we're gonna go ahead and take a 10 mil and remove all 4 of these. And that's what holds your impeller right inside there. All right, so now that we've gotten all of our bolts out of there, we're gonna take and we're gonna lift this up. But we've gotta be careful as we lift it up. There's a little key that sits inside of here that attaches to your impeller to keep it spinning. So you don't want that to fall down into your lower unit. And there's that little key. It just sits flush right here. There's our impeller. It's looking a little weak on some of the fins here, so it's definitely the time for a change. All right, so remember when you do remove your impeller, there's little nylon washers here. There's one, and another one inside here that's gonna go on the top there. So your kit's gonna come with 2 new ones inside of it. It also comes with this new plate, which that plate goes right here. I'm not replacing that because I don't need to. There's nothing wrong with mine. I'm just gonna take these washers out of here and replace the washers and replace the actual impeller itself. And I'll be good with that. You've also got this gasket. You get a new one in the kit. We're gonna peel this thing up, and you're gonna need a razor blade and a wire brush to clean that up. So I'm just gonna take my little razor blade, go around and pick this gasket off, trying not to drop any parts inside of there. All right, so we've got that ready to throw our new gasket on and throw everything back together. All right, now we've got everything off. We've cleaned this thing up. We've got our new washers ready. Our new little plastic washers are gonna go on here. We're gonna put our key back in. I'm gonna hold it in. I'm gonna put a little dab of grease on it to keep it held in place. Slide my new gasket down and then put the impeller on lined up with that key. You'll see the little keyway in this old one, that little cutout is for that key to hold it in place properly. I'll take and put a little grease on my gasket so that it can be easily held in place. Now we're going to take our key. I'm just going to dab a little grease on the back of it. Just like so. You got to be very careful with this. You do not want to drop this inside that lower unit. Dab that on. Take our new impeller. And I'm going to put a little grease on this impeller as well, on the fins, just a little. That way, when we do go to start this thing up and it's completely dry, it's got something to spin on. And it also helps you put that cover back on. All right, we're gonna make sure we get that key through that proper area. Hold on to this thing, try to turn it. If it doesn't turn, you know you've got your key in properly, lined up. Now you're almost back together. All right, so we've got our cover. We can't forget we're gonna put this gasket back on top here. So I'll take just a dab of grease. Just a little bit. Put it in there around so that I can set this in, kind of keep it in place. Set this back on top. Now you gotta remember that your impeller turns clockwise. So when you put this on, you want to turn this counterclockwise as you're pushing down. Hold here. And just like so. So that now those fins are gonna be bent to turn in the clockwise direction. All right. Now we're ready to start putting it back together. We're gonna take our bolts here, and to prevent corrosion, we're gonna slap a little bit of grease on each one. If they're corroded already, you need to make sure that you clean them off. We're just gonna grease our bolts up, like so. Now we're going to take and make sure we clean this up with a wire brush before we put new grease on that. All right, so this is going to be our hardest part, is when we go to put this thing back on. So, especially if you're by yourself. So what you can do is you can take your shifter here. This is your shifting bar. So that when you put it into forward, this turns one way or the other, and reverse turns the opposite. So to put this thing on by yourself, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a paint marker and I'm gonna mark the very top of this here. And I'm gonna go up there I'm gonna put my gear into forward, and I'll know which way this turns, left or right. And then I'm gonna go over to my lower unit, and I'm gonna take and I'm gonna turn this thing in line with it. So I'll put this in forward or reverse or left or right, whatever it does, clockwise, counterclockwise. And that's gonna line it up into forward gear. This will be lined up into forward gear, and I should be able to slide it on. So take and just mark the top of it right there with a little dab of paint. You can just barely see it. Up here, put this in the forward. So you can see where I marked with my paint. The shifter turned clockwise if I'm looking at it from this position. But if we were to think from looking down on it, it would have turned counterclockwise. So we're looking down on this piece. We need to turn it counterclockwise to get it to line up. Because if we were looking from the bottom, say we were looking from the bottom, the way it would turn clockwise. I hope that's making sense. It's kind of hard to explain, but you'll understand once you're looking at it. All right, so we've got to take this. We're gonna take a wrench or vice grips, whatever. I'm gonna grab onto it, and I'm just gonna turn it counterclockwise, and that should put it into forward gear. Now to confirm that you're in gear, you can see this will not turn freely, but you can take and spin your drive shaft and it'll turn. All right, so now that we've got it in gear, we're gonna take and grease up our splines on everything. Come down here, check this out. I'm gonna throw some grease on this stud here. I'm gonna grease up all my bolts, and we're gonna put this back in place. Also, don't forget about this piece. This goes on here. That guides that shifter into and onto this thing. So don't forget that. You're gonna have to have that. All right, so now we can take our low unit, have our little improvised setup here. And since I'm in gear, I can spin it and line up the splines. All right, so I wiggle that prop until the splines line up. Now I've got it back on properly. And it's sealed, I don't have to pull it up with the bolts. All right, so I've got this stud snugged up. I'm gonna put the rest of my bolts back in. I'm not gonna tighten them completely yet, but you can see here, I did this by hand. I snugged it up to here by hand. I didn't force it on there. There wasn't a 1/4 inch of space, and then I put the bolts in and tightened it up. You can really mess stuff up doing it that way. So you want to grease up your bolts, get them back in, and then you want to confirm that your shifter is in the right position. So if you're in forward, it'll turn forward, it clicks, and it won't turn backwards. And then you take and put it into neutral. Put it into neutral, and it'll spin freely. Put it in reverse, and it'll turn in reverse. Or sorry, it will lock itself up. And that's how you know you're in gear. got everything lined up correctly. So take your greased bolts here, and you're gonna start putting them back in. All right, so now that I've got everything hand tight, all my bolts except this one, put that on last. I'm gonna go ahead and tighten everything up, including that stud. And then I'm gonna take and I'll put that last piece on, and then I'll finish by cleaning my prop, put some new grease on that spline, and we'll be good to go. All right, gonna confirm one more time. Neutral. Reverse. Forward. Back to neutral. This thing off. And make sure this dude is on the splines down there. So you should be able to pinch it, turn your prop. That little locking tab back in. Start tightening this guy. Doesn't have to be too tight. What I'm doing here is I'm just closing those tabs with a screwdriver so that it's locked. All secured, and you are done. All right, guys, that's gonna wrap it up with your Mercury 60 300-hour maintenance kit. If you got any questions, leave me a comment. Also, go check out Canada Wide Marine. I want to give him a shout out. I learned a lot of stuff from him. He's awesome. He knows a lot about these motors. Thank you so much for watching.